like good morning, Tik Tok.
The one thing that I was annoyed about was when I was doing the car yesterday, the case that the one I originally picked was so much nicer, but still fine. They'll be under the desks anyway.
Was it? No, I don't really see them. Good morning, everybody who's just joining us. Welcome. It's Wednesday. It's 11 o'clock-ish, depending on where you are in the world. That means it's time for All Things Funerals with us at McCartney Family Funerals. Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Baz. Nice to see you. It's going to be a shortish or shorter than normal one today. Holiday, Baz. I wish I haven't had a holiday since like 2012. So I'm well and truly overdue for a holiday. Fernie, hello in Texas, USA. Hello, Janice. Where should I go on holiday? That cable's really twisted. Just FYI.
It's also not turned off.
Yeah. Wow. Where should I go on holiday? Any suggestions? Maybe I'd like to go to somewhere like Norway or somewhere that's like not middle of Australian summer. That's a great question. I remember when we interviewed Jacob. Did Jacob tell his story?
Yeah, he
did.
us.
Okay, cool. Don't worry about it. Peter, great question. How do you transfer someone from their home to the mortuary? So we call this a residential transfer. I'm just going to pin that comment. Thanks, Baz. We call that a residential transfer. So we have a range of different types of stretchers that we use. So we either have standard size stretchers, or we have bariatric stretchers, or we have hand carry stretchers as well. So depending on the house, hey Kelly, how are you? Depending on the house and where the person is, generally a home transfer or residential transfer is pretty straightforward. We have our transfer vehicles as well as our stretchers, and we can get a person into our care pretty easily. Yeah, great question. Thanks, Peter. Where's everyone joining us from today? Did Tyler do the don't forget to follow us on our socials?
I didn't.
You know the thing that he always gives me a hard time about? You know, if you haven't followed us on TikTok, make sure you do that. Check out our other socials, so the Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Tyler's working on our YouTube series at the moment, which is pretty exciting and pretty awesome.
One coming out tomorrow.
One coming tomorrow. Awesome. Do we ever go to crime scenes and bring the bodies back, Nima? No, that's a great question. So the coroners here in Queensland, they have their own undertakers who are contracted to do that sort of work. So obviously there's a whole range of, chains of custody and other things that need to happen when it's an actual crime scene. So that's a specific group of undertakers that do that work. Wow, people from all over the place. Adelaide, Ireland. Eleni, can you chuck me a follow? Can you chuck me a follow? Baz in the UK. I don't know if you guys saw, but Tracy's actually back home at the moment in Newcastle on Tyne. She's her and her husband Lee are visiting family, which is really nice. Hey Ness, on the Gold Coast. Nima in Canada. What made me get into this line of work? Do you know, if you would have asked me early in my life if I ever would have seen myself working in funerals, I would have laughed and said, no way, it's gross. No one wants to be around dead bodies and death and grief all the time. And I guess there was one point in my life where I wanted to have a bit of a career change or a career break. And I went back to university and I started working as a celebrant to make some money and kind of fell in love with funerals. And I know that sounds really weird, but I really enjoyed the opportunity to help someone celebrate their life and help their family through that really tough time. And straight away it was really obvious to me why people do this kind of work, and it was just something that I could never imagine not doing afterwards. So yeah, that was me. I kind of fell into it. Baz, yeah, I saw a photo with Tracy and Lee yesterday, and they were like rugged up. And in fact, Matthew, who works for us as well, he's also in the UK at the moment. They're on separate holidays, but in the same place. And he was in a picture with him in the snow with his daughter, and he wasn't wearing a jacket. And Tracy, went mad at him. She was like, "Where is your jacket?" It was funny. K Newts, hey, this is a really good question, and I want to pin this one. What do we want to see from people when they apply for these jobs, and what's helpful to get into this line of work? It's one of the things we really look for are people who have some good stability first and foremost, have good longevity in their jobs and in their role. But we also look for people who can demonstrate an ability to demonstrate compassion. We want to see people who will, be able to sacrifice themselves. So, and when I say sacrifice themselves, I mean sacrifice parts of, their time. As funeral directors, we work 24/7. So we're always on the clock and we're always working. So, you have to be able to sometimes be okay with missing out on stuff that your family and friends are doing, that you want to be doing, because we just don't get the opportunity. Death doesn't wait for anybody. So we want to see people who've got really good flexibility. We want to see people who've got great levels of compassion, lots of heart, write a really great cover letter and show some really good experience, and hopefully that'll get you a foot in the door. Good luck though. How is it possible for funeral homes to lose a loved one's ashes? Going through this now, being Aboriginal, my uncle can't return to the earth. Now his ashes are lost. Hey, Hartman, tell us a bit more about this. Where did this happen? We have pretty stringent processes and pretty strict processes and requirements here at McCartney Funerals. So for us, that would just be impossible to happen. In terms of chains of custody with ashes and belongings, that just doesn't, it's not something that is possible. So how have those ashes gone missing? Can you tell me more of the story? Someone wants to no thanks, Pascal. Baz, thanks, Baz. The content is fire, right? Tyler does such a great job with our content. It's, such a great thing. Hartman, what sort of, I'm intrigued to understand what the actual process has been to this point where they've lost the ashes. Can you tell me a bit more? Nima, is it true funeral homes don't pay property tax? No, that's not true. We pay all the taxes. So any type of tax that the government can possibly charge us, they absolutely charge us that tax, yeah. Maria, random question. I'm missing my internal carotid artery. Would I still be able to be embalmed? Yeah, you are, absolutely. I want to know how you're missing your internal carotid artery and are still functioning. But yeah, absolutely. You have a majority or a whole range of other arteries within your body that we can embalm through. And in fact, most embalms, whether they're standard or complex, would use more than one artery as an injection site anyway. So you might use a carotid, a femoral, axillary, brachials, all the different types of arteries you may be able to sort of use anyway. So it doesn't have to just be the carotid. The carotid is just the easiest usually. Funerals are costly, I guess, it does cost a lot of money. If you look at the price of a hearse, for example, so a brand new hearse to buy is just over $500,000. When you look at, coffins and, you look at what chemicals cost in a mortuary, you look at all of the things that we need to do. So one stretcher for us to bring a person into care, you're talking about between $10,000 and $15,000. The car to carry that stretcher, you're talking anywhere from $70,000 to $150,000. It's really expensive to run a funeral home. So funeral homes, people think that it's really easy and it's really straightforward, and it's just not. Things are really expensive, and funeral homes are expensive businesses to run, and they're expensive to have good quality equipment and to have great service. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of service involved. So we have to pay wages, and we like to pay good wages. And we also like to think that we're not, that expensive, quite frankly. We try and keep our prices as affordable as possible. Hello, Colleen. Okay, so Hartman, where was that? So to keep metal rods to be used in his garden where he's supposed to be laid to rest. It's been 2 months since his funeral. He was cremated straight after the funeral. Now they're forever lost. So are the ashes lost, or are the metal rods lost? Are the implants lost? Embalming can take anywhere from sort of 90 minutes to 4 or 5 hours more, depending on the case, whether it's complex, whether it's straightforward, whether it's nice and easy. But yeah, generally anywhere from 90 minutes to a few hours for embalming. Was it in utero? Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to catch up with these comments. Okay, Hartman. So the ashes aren't missing, so it's the metal implants that are missing. Okay. So what happens is when the ashes come out of the cremator, they go through a cooling process. And from that cooling process, once the ashes are cooled, then they go into a cremulator or processor, which is like a great big coffee grinder, which brings the consistency and the texture of the ashes from really coarse gravel sort of consistency right down to a fine powder or fine sand type of consistency. So they go through that process. For it to go through that process safely, it can't have any metal or anything like that. So what should have happened is the cremator operators, so they should have removed, using a magnet, removed anything metal that was in those ashes and put those aside for you. I would say what's happened is they've probably been disposed of instead of being returned to you, which is really sad and really unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. But the majority of those ashes should absolutely still be in the portion that were returned to his daughter. I'm sure if you work with the crematorium and the funeral home, they would do their absolute best to, try and help you with that. Do we have machines that dig the hole for the coffin, or is it dug by hand? So absolutely, all your graves are dug by what we call a sexton, and the sextons use big backhoes and big machinery to dig those holes. Yeah. When we do exhumations, though, so where we're bringing a body back up from being buried back to the surface, there's only a certain point where the buckets in those big machines that they'll dig to, and then they stop, and then we hop in with shovels and we start manually digging at that point. So we don't sort of damage coffins and that sort of thing. K-Newts, absolutely. So do funeral homes mind if people ask to go in and look around? Definitely not. So in fact, we had a family in the other day who were here for a viewing. They had some preconceived ideas about what happens at a funeral home, and they'd asked one of us. And rather than us just telling them what they sort of needed to hear or telling them the answer, we took them out for a tour. So we took them through everywhere from our front reception, through our mortuary, right through our fridges where we store our coffins, to our vehicles. They got to see everything. For us, there's nothing to hide. So we're very proud of what we do as funeral directors and how we do what we do. So yeah, if anybody wants to see and they're in Brisbane, you're most welcome to give us a call and we'll book a tour for you, for sure. Have we ever had someone watch their loved one being embalmed? No, not usually. Look, while we probably would we would say yes and let somebody do that, you have to keep in mind that embalming it's quite intrusive. So it's quite invasive. We're making incisions into that person. We're using an external pump to inject fluid into their arteries. It can be quite confronting, especially if they're dealing with all of that grief and that loss and that sadness that goes with losing somebody. It's really tough. So it's probably not the best idea for someone. But if they wanted to, they could, absolutely.
There's a pinned video of Tracy's response to the same question.
Great. So if you look at our pinned video on TikTok, someone's asked that question before about watching an embalm, and Tracy answers it for you there as well. So it's great. If someone doesn't have the money to pay for a funeral, where does the body go? So depending on where the person is, we do have a funeral fund in Queensland, which is government assistance for a funeral through the funeral government contractors. It used to be called a pauper's funeral, but we don't call it that anymore. And if it is elsewhere, so there's a lot of different options. So, we can do cremations for a cheap or from as low as $1,400. So we do have sort of payment arrangements for families if they need that support as well. That's a great question, Kelly. Was it a large company or a family business? Maria, does the deceased body still bleed? No, in fact. So there might be some fluid that sort of comes out, or some, of that sort of thing. But essentially, no, because what happens is all of the blood has really settled. There's no circulatory system still moving for that blood to go anywhere and for the blood to, go to those areas of injury. So no, the body doesn't still bleed after death. Country Rose, can you ask, have we ever seen a deceased move?
One girl actually started breakdancing.
Yeah, breakdancing. Yeah, absolutely. No, they haven't. Sometimes, when we're, like preparing bodies and those sorts of things, and all of our muscles, all of our ligaments, everything is joined together. So, you might be massaging rigor mortis for a certain part of a person's arm or their leg, and it might trigger another part of their body to move. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes we hear air escaping from a person, and that can be a bit confronting, a bit startling. But it's just a natural part of the process where that air is escaping after a person has been moved, not moved so much. I know when I first started in the industry, I remember looking after a person who was maybe like the fourth or fifth person that I'd ever looked after in the mortuary. And I kept closing their eyes. And every time I'd move or do something different, their eyes would open and it would be like they were looking at me. And I was so put off by it. I was like, oh my gosh, like this feels so uncomfortable, like way too scary for me. But it was interesting either way. Then that didn't hurt me, right? So Nima, here we have about 17 staff. We look after about, anywhere from 1,500 to 1,700 families every year. So we're a fairly large operation. We are very busy a lot of the time. And we have everything from, media advisors like Tyler and content creator, to graphic designers, to finance people, to funeral directors, to mortuary attendants, to embalmers, to funeral directors, funeral assistants, operations managers. We have a whole range of different people. So we have a lot. Grim, we don't actually have mortuary schools here in Australia, so we're not like America or that sort of thing. America? So we do have only one mortuary school, essentially, which offers training or competency-based training in funeral or mortuary operations or embalming. So unfortunately, we don't really have the training that they have elsewhere. So we do a lot of learning on the job, a lot of mentoring, and then for people who want to be embalmers, they then go and do their embalming training, and that costs around about $20,000. So yeah. Thanks for the hearts, guys. Making me blush. While you're here, though, if you haven't already followed us on TikTok, make sure you do follow us here. Check out our Facebook, check out our Instagram, check out our YouTube. YouTube is one where we're really keen on making some longer form content for you. So if there's things that you want some really in-depth information about or things that you want to see other than embalm, we know everybody wants to see an embalm. Yeah, flick us a message, send us a DM here, and we'll make sure that we get some really good content for you on that YouTube, which is longer form, so which should be really cool. Thanks, Baz. Talk about number one supporter. And tell all your friends about us, right? Share us, share our content. Don't gatekeep. Today is going to be a bit of a shorter live. Thank you, Seconds. Appreciate that. Bit of a shorter live. So if you've got questions, we've probably got about another 10 minutes that we can do today. And I apologize that we haven't been here every Wednesday. It has been really, really busy. And sometimes it's really hard for me to get just an hour of downtime to spend with you guys. So if it was 3 o'clock in the morning, absolutely. I'm always awake with plenty of time at 3 in the morning, but 11 o'clock in the morning sometimes is a bit tough for me. So maybe we'll do like a midnight live. Actually, we were talking about doing a 24-hour live. What do you guys think about that? About going live for 24 hours? And we're thinking about setting a goal. So we work with a charity called Precious Wings here in Brisbane. Precious Wings is a charity who provides support and memory boxes to people who have lost a child or a baby. And we would really love to raise some money for them for Christmas. It's hard though, right? Because we understand that a lot of people are doing it tough right now as well. So we don't want people to think that, we're just after your money and that sort of thing. But at the same time, we really want to help out Precious Wings. So that's what we're thinking. We're thinking about going live for 24 hours to raise $5,000. Was that the plan? 5K? Yeah. What do you guys think? Should we go live for 24 solid hours non-stop and see how we go? It wouldn't be me for 24 hours.
Sure.
It'd be a whole mixture of all of the team.
You do one of those sleep streams that people do.
You want to watch me sleep?
No, you set the live stream up 24 hours, you gotta sleep at some point,
That's true, but I feel that's awkward. Like, I don't know how I feel about people. Because I sleepwalk really badly. And I'm talking my sleep, right? That'd be a whole different YouTube TikTok channel. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we might keep you posted on that one. Yeah, because already we donate every year about $25,000-$30,000 to Precious Wings. We sponsored their fundraising luncheon, and we do a lot of work around the grief space and supporting people who have experienced child or infant loss, which is a different type of grief. Maria's asked a question here that says, does a man's beard get longer? I remember my granddad's looked longer, but I'm not sure if it was just me. That's a really great question. Clearly my speaking today. It's been a little while since I've done a live. I forget how to talk. When we die, no, our hair doesn't continue growing. Our nails don't keep growing. People think that we do, but what's actually happening is that our body is starting to dehydrate. And as we dehydrate, what happens is our skin pulls back and everything underneath it comes forward. So no, it's not growing. Our skin is just dehydrating and pulling back, and it's making things look like they are still growing, but they're not growing. It definitely stops growing. For things to grow, our cells need to be active and alive and moving. And obviously once we're deceased and once we've passed, that's not the case. So people might try and tell you that they are still growing, but they're definitely not still growing. Sorry. Otherwise they'd be like fountain of youth kind of stuff, right? My pleasure, Maria. Thanks, Amber. That's really lovely. All right, hit me with some good questions. Who's going to have question of the day coming forward for me? And I don't know if you guys can see, but the weather here right now, oops. Can you see? You probably can't see all that rain out there. Good old Queensland summer. Hey, that's way better lighting. That's way better lighting. I feel like better. Hang on. Wait. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to play with the lighting until I feel like my skin looks good. Or just get some Botox, either way. Yeah, I know. I saw the snow in the UK. Tracy's over in the UK right now. I'm so jealous. I would love to be on holidays, but Tracy, she beat me to it. Kens, we don't have free counselling as such, but we certainly have relationships with a lot of different support groups. We have a lot of different places that provide support to families based on the type of loss they're experiencing, and we certainly are more than happy to put you in touch with those people should you need that, for sure. And, our team as well, so funeral directors are always really willing, and it is part of what they do, to spend time with their families to help them really develop a good relationship with death. When you think about what it is that we do as funeral directors, we don't just, sell you a coffin and sell you flowers and organise a cremation. What our job is actually to do is to help you develop a great relationship with death. And when I say great relationship, I mean that could be a relationship of understanding, of respect, of acceptance. Because when you have a good relationship with death, it means that you can develop your grief processing and mechanisms, the way you handle grief, a lot better than when your entire frame of mind is negative or negativity towards death. So for us, if we do our jobs well, we give you all the space that you need to have a good relationship with death so that you can grieve in a healthy way. And that really helps people to find peace in their heart. And, moving forward is not the right thing, but to find a new normal and find a way to continue living and continue existing that's not so painful. That's what we do. That's what funeral directors do. What does Maria? Great question. What does a buried, embalmed body look like after 5 years? Look, I looked after a family a few years ago, and their dad had been buried in Greece. And in Greece, they have a bit of a different type of situation. So you only buy a grave for 3-year periods of time or 9-year periods. Every 3 years, they pull the coffin out, they wash the bones or whatever's left, and then they cycle it around. So they have like a little cave sort of thing or a crypt, and they might have 3 bodies in rotation at the same time. So this gentleman had been embalmed, and the family didn't want to continue paying the maintenance and all of those sorts of things. They had a family plot here, and they wanted to bring the dad across from Greece to Australia. So we did that. We repatriated him back here to Australia, and then when he got here, we obviously had to make sure that he was embalmed in a way that was suitable for interment into a vault here in Australia. So for him, he'd been very well preserved. There was a lot of dehydration, obviously. So the skin had had a lot of discoloration, a lot of leathering. But in fact, his sort of, body and, his integrity of self and structure was all still completely fine. So, embalming does a lot of things and a lot of things well. If you think about how decomposition works, so if you add water and you add air, that really speeds up the process of decomposition. Whereas when we've embalmed a body or a person, we've deliberately preserved that person. We've introduced preservatives into the body to prevent it from decaying quickly. And then we've removed the air, we've removed the water, so there's no moisture and there's no oxygen, so it can really slow things down. Nima, no, we're good. We do have, security cameras, CCTV and alarms, those sorts of things, but we don't really have problems like that here. I don't know if I don't know what movies you're watching that have a lot of vandalism to funeral homes, but I haven't seen any of those. You'll have to tell me some so I can watch. Jade Vander, here in Australia, I'd say the number of people who get embalmed will be less than 10%, or probably less than 5%, in fact. So people are only embalmed if they need longer-term preservation. So if they're being repatriated, interred into a vault, if they're going home for a vigil, or for any other sort of, preservation reason, if they have to stay here for a longer period of time. James, any tips for an interview to work in the funeral home? Best advice is be authentic, be yourself, and, let your personality shine through. Oh, wow. No, Kelly, I didn't see that. Sorry. So the funeral home admitted to losing the ashes. Oh, gosh, that would be my worst fear. I think, we're really lucky in the fact that, not only am I incredibly anal retentive and expect really high levels of dignity and respect for our people, but also really high levels of attention to detail from our team. That would just destroy me if that happened to us. I can't imagine how that family must be feeling. Oh, Jade, I'm so sorry to hear that. Good on him for completing that. That's a big achievement. Folks, it is that time. I did say 10 minutes. The guys, thanks to Tyler and Jess and Jacob for filling in for me at the beginning while I was helping another family. Appreciate you guys all the time. Really, really love spending my time with you when we have that free time. Keep a lookout. We're gonna talk about this 24-hour live and see if we can make it a reality. I'll do my best. I promise we'll do our best to be here next Wednesday. If it's not me, it'll be somebody. And then the following week, actually, the next 2 lives after that will be live from the mortuary, because I'll be working in the mortuary for those 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks of December, make sure that you're here for those Wednesday mornings, because you'll be joining me live in the mortuary while I'm doing preps. So while I'm looking after people on the table, Tyler will be in there asking me all the questions. And you won't get to see all of the things, but who knows? Who knows what you might see? Make sure you check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of our socials. Give us lots of love. Tap that screen. And hey, really appreciate your time, guys. Thanks for sharing it with us. Hope you all have a good day. Stay safe.